Hello, everyone. I watched this conversation a few days ago and had an interest in doing a video response to it. First, we're going to have Justin introduce himself, and I'm not going to include the entire discussion in this video because it's about 45 minutes long, but just highlight some moments that were of interest. But first, here is Justin Vacula introducing himself.
All right, hello everyone. Justin Vacula here. I'm here with Max of the Escaping Atheism project. We're going to talk a little bit about some of our differences, some of the content that Max has been putting online. I've mainly been uploading videos on Stoic philosophy, but I've also been engaging with atheism, the atheism community, some local groups, and have blogged about the topic in length, also working with church-state separation issues. So I invited Max to join me in a conversation here about atheism, about philosophy, and hopefully we'll have a productive discussion for our viewers. So thanks for coming on today.
I was initially confused about the pronunciation of Justin's last name, and I recently found a video, right after I watched this actually, of Noel Plum, 99, working on the pronunciation. I thought that was, I found it very amusing, and although I did make the same mistake of pronouncing Vacula like Dracula, he's got a very entertaining way of presenting it.
Can I just say, Justin Vacula, when I first heard, I was really disappointed. When I first heard of this guy, I assumed his name was Justin Vacula, and I realise now I'm not the only person to make that erroneous assumption. I was kind of disappointed to find out that it was Vacula. I'm not one to tell somebody, I think it's wrong to tell somebody, it's a bit cheeky to tell somebody that they're actually pronouncing their own name wrongly. But if Dracula is pronounced Dracula, who do we side with here? I think I'm siding with the Count on this one. Okay, but anyway, if that's how he wants to pronounce his name, that's up to him.
I don't know much about this Dean Esme Max Kolb guy, but he has this YouTube channel. He might have other websites, YouTube channel called Escaping Atheism. Just to get an idea of where he's coming from, in the description for that channel, it says, and I quote, "Because atheism is optional and irrational and stupid." And I'm going to call him out for this, not as being in your face offensive, but just being confused and incorrect, because faith by definition is a strong belief in God or in the doctrines of a religion based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof. He's saying that it's irrational and stupid, and yet, what was that quote? Faith is believing in something that you know ain't so. I think it was Mark Twain. As far as the optional part, a lot of us believe that we were born, everybody was born without a faith. If you think that the faith of your parents is ingrained upon you before you're born, I think it's silly. So faith would be optional. Anyone who knows Justin Vacula or has seen him online or watched his videos knows that he's a polite, pleasant, and well thought out person. And he handles himself really, really well, really ably throughout this conversation. He is, I feel, the adult in the room, whereas Max Kolb comes out of the gate swinging, punching, insulting, and being very, very condescending towards Justin.
Hey, great to have me. Great to be here, Justin.
Yeah, I see that you recently started the Escaping Atheism project. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what led to the start of that project?
Well, as a former atheist myself who was involved peripherally in atheist movement politics and such back in the early 2000s, leaving right around 2006, 2007 when it was cresting, I had always assumed atheism, that it was a fad, that it was going to go away. I didn't realize it had morphed into such a hideous, horrible hate movement dedicated to ignorance and intolerance and hate, which is what atheism is now.
Interesting how these newly minted religious people were once atheists. They once supported the whole movement. I don't know enough about this guy to know if he if that's, we'll take him as word. But the interesting thing is he refers to it as a fad, and he thought it was going to go away. Doesn't seem to understand that beyond his tiny scope of the world, his knowledge of the universe, that it's been around forever. It's been people not believing in God has always been around. People not being part of organized religion has always been around, and it's not going to go away. It was too easy. It was too easy. I felt like it was much too simple to go after that one. So I'm going to move on to his claim of atheism being a hate movement dedicated towards ignorant intolerance and hate. It's not a movement because atheism is defined as having no belief in a God. So there's people from all walks of lives that do not believe in God. And it's not like membership in a church, which is a movement. And these movements that are dedicated toward ignorance and tolerance, well, faith, believing in something without proof, is certainly up there on the ignorance. Intolerance, we've seen through history what, in the name of religion, I'm not going to go through the thousands of years of intolerance towards other people that are not of your same faith or without faith. We don't even get in there. We don't even get into that.
And having heard from many people who couldn't stand the atheists on television, horrible men like Sam Harris, horrible men like Bill Maher, horrible men like Penn Jillette, whom I'm ashamed I was ever a fan of or ever gave any money to.
He has confused movements with individuals, personalities.
College professors afraid to reveal that they're not atheists. Philosophers, people at work afraid to reveal that they're not atheists. Atheist is a hate cult. And
Max Kolb, are you aware of the hundreds of years of history of the world, not just the United States and the West, but the entire world, of people being tortured and murdered, and because of that were afraid to come out as atheists, who were afraid to say they weren't religious? And here in the United States, think about this, like the fake war on Christmas. How many politicians in government, in the United States government, have the courage to come out as not being religious? Just think about that. Think about that. But you can only imagine the fear and terror put into the hearts of and lives of the people going back centuries, of being discovered, not just because they were non-believers, but of the wrong faith. And we have a history in our world of people fearing persecution because of their faith or lack of faith, including the current time. In different parts of the world, it means death to be a non-believer.
I had started it about a year and a half ago. I had a title called God and Man in the 20th Century, but it was boring.
Well, because it is boring. How about something like atheists are a bunch of intolerant, abusive, ignorant, horrible people?
Escaping Atheism was what our followers wanted, because we are dedicated to helping people escape from atheism.
I liked my idea for a name better. However, since you've picked Escaping Atheism, please explain to us how you escape from atheism. So is there some large institution, this large organization that ride around in horses enforcing their atheism on people? They patrol towns, they look for people that appear to be having faith, and they enforce their atheism. So if you want to get out of the atheism club, it's the only way out is death. It's the only way you're going to get out. Please explain to us where this exists, where there's some enforcement of this deranged organization that's keeping. I think you're confusing it with thousands of years of religion.
It is a deranged hate cult. So is much of what is supposedly called skepticism. Most of you are also just dogmatic atheists who are not to be trusted because you're not honest people.
Well, thank you for that rather inartful argumentum ad hominem. And I'm not going to say you need to show us proof or all the silly things you always get online. But where do you come from this? Was there a study done? Did Pew do a poll to examine skeptics and non-believers and find out what kind of horrible people? Please reply to this, anyone, and give me a link to that poll.
And you're frequently abusive. I'm including you in that, Justin. If I recall that little study you used to use, going around peddling pseudoscience, telling people that science said prayer doesn't work. You lied to people in that spiritual, psychological abuse. And one of the questions I'm going to have is, who dispatched you on that sick little cult recruitment thing you were on back then?
All right, so...
But anyway, that's Escaping Atheism. We don't even necessarily want you to become a Christian. Please just get out of that fucking cult.
Now, the fact that this guy keeps insisting that atheism is a cult lowers his non-existent credibility to a negative amount, and I'm not going to address that anymore. It's just absurd.
All right, so obviously we have a lot of disagreement there, but you said you were a former atheist, so what has led you to convert? You mentioned some criticisms of atheists, certain individuals, some disagreements that you've had, but what led you to Christian belief or Catholic belief in particular?
What first led me to my belief was the realization that atheism is illogical and unsustainable rationally on any level, scientifically or otherwise. And that led me to start searching for what religions had the most truth.
At this point in the conversation, I'm starting to believe that Justin is being punked. This guy can't possibly be serious by making statements about unsustainable with rationalism and not realizing that, once again, we get back to this is getting ridiculous. With faith, you have to believe whether there's proof or not, and there is no proof, in my opinion. Whereas skeptics and atheists and non-believers, they look for proof. They can be proven wrong. It's the opposite of what he's saying here. They can accept incorrect conclusions and move on and find something that is correct or good for them.
I see. So for me, I was raised in a Catholic tradition, and I simply took claims on the basis of faith, and that's a lot of what was told. Well, you have to have faith that God exists, and here are the words in the Bible. And I went through the CCD classes, the Catholic Child Development, went through the sacraments, confirmation, everything like that, and hadn't really questioned it until I got into college. And it was a Catholic college I went to, quite an environment where there was a lot of philosophical discussion, even some theology classes talking about belief and unbelief, the reasons that people have for belief, the reasons that people have for unbelief. And for me, I arrived at the position of atheism as that I didn't see good reasons for those beliefs. Okay,
so Justin is basically stating the obvious here, that he's come to a conclusion. He's examined faith. He was raised in a religious upbringing, went to a Catholic college, and made a conclusion based upon his own decisions, based upon the facts, based upon what he observed, and he drew a conclusion. So he wasn't kidnapped and brought into some kind of cult and brainwashed.
Okay, so basically you never have been truly confronted on why atheism makes no sense. This is common for atheists. Out of curiosity, when was the first atheist cult group you joined?
Well, I'm confused also about your wording on that, about the cult group. I'm not really understanding that.
And Justin has a right to be confused about his wording, because nowhere has this man convinced us that atheism is a cult. He's hurled a lot of insults and he's talked a lot of trash, but all he's done is just make a statement that atheism is a cult. He's offered no explanation, nothing to clarify.
Which atheist or skeptic cult group did you first go to meetings for? Like Center for Inquiry, one of the atheist clubs at school? Just curious which of these ones recruited you.
Well, I wouldn't really say it's so much of recruited because the deconversion, if you must say, was in college and reading texts and responding to people on campus and going to religious discussions on campus where there were some Christian teachers, theologians, priests who were having a lot of these discussions. And I would ask them these questions. Well, what is the basis for belief? And I found the ideas to be unconvincing, and that's what led to lacking.
To your supposed deconversion. By the way, very Orwellian cult phrasing, deconversion. Atheism is not the default rational position. How dare you fuckwits pretend that you're the default correct view in the world? Someone needs to challenge you on that. You converted to a movement, son, and you converted to a worldview. And if you won't admit this, the rest of us are right to look at you and say, wow, what an incredibly arrogant elitist this is.
That's funny. He's saying somebody needs to challenge him on this, but all the things that Max Kolb is claiming is exactly what his faith does. It claims it's the default position. And it's exactly what he's saying. He's claiming it as the default position, and yet he's accusing Justin of doing just that. I've skipped over a bunch of other things in here, but there's just too much to process. This video would be hours long, but it's amazing to watch this guy and once again using insulting language.
Well,
you assume your atheist proposition is correct? Back that up.
Well, there was some talk about this in your videos and saying that the atheism is the position that there is no God. Atheism is a faith position, but I don't see it as this way. It's merely a word to describe myself as lacking belief in any gods.
I don't believe you.
I don't think
nobody else should believe you. And nobody else should believe you when you make that claim. You're lying when you make that claim. And rational, civilized people who are not Christian, even pagans and Jews, should look at you when you say it's just lack of belief and assume if you'll lie like that, you'll lie about anything. Atheists have no honor and should not be trusted.
Now, here Max Kolb gets into the social justice warrior mindset of mind reading. Justin says something about himself, and only Justin knows this. But Max, knows Dean Esme, whatever. I keep seeing Dean Esme on the screen while I'm watching this. He knows that he can't read other people's minds, and yet, just like the SJWs, they say, the Islamic terrorists have nothing to do with Islam when they say they're religious and they say they're doing it in the name of religion. And also, like the people on the political right in the United States, when President Obama says he's a Christian, they say, no, we know better. We know what he really thinks, what's in his mind. We're reading his mind and saying, no, he's a Muslim. It's the same mentality.
Well, I don't think anything comes from this belief, as I see that there are atheists who believe in things like reincarnation. There are some who will classify themselves as materialists. There'll be different ideas on free will. There'll be different political ideas. There'll be different ties with social movements.
Generalizations that you guys make as part of your religion, where you, again, blend and blur. The fact is, we know how most atheists come down politically. Most of you are socialists or socialist leaning. The few of you, the rest of you, go libertarian.
So the lack of belief in a God is now a religion. Okay, and please explain to us how you know how non-believers are lean politically. Where did you get this information from?
You're extremely predictable thinkers. Your inability to even see all the presumptions you make about the universe and all the presumptions you make about your fellow humans, you can't even see them. You're blind to them. It's like you're brainwashed. And it makes you extremely painful to talk to and painful to be around.
It was long before this point that it got very painful to keep listening to Max Kolb's tired arguments.
And I hear from people all the time who say the same thing about you.
So that must mean it's true, right, Max?
No, you're lying to yourselves. Your atheism makes you predictable. And it makes you scary. And so Christians especially, because you hate Christians more than you hate anybody else. But every religion, Hindus should be afraid of you. Muslims should be afraid of you. Jews should be afraid of you. Pagans should be afraid of you. Pagans who believe in because you're horrible people.
Well,
And you lie about the religious. And I don't particularly need to be your friend or be liked by you. You're rightly disliked, sir. Your whole community is.
Well, this was one contention I had, and you brought this up about distrust of atheists. You said that atheists have no morals, no form ethical base. You wouldn't vote for an atheist.
Correct.
Why not assume betrayal from an atheist if they cast off absolute good and evil? And you're also saying that atheism speaks as a victim group, but you have a lot of these what I see as misconceptions about atheists, saying that they have no morals.
I have no misconceptions, sir. I was an atheist for more than 10 years. I had hundreds of people who were atheists I talked to.
And of course, this hundreds of people you talk to makes you an expert on the subject.
Oh, you're cutting out.
Stan, how come no one ever made you question the atheist proposition? Or are you going to weasel out like a typical slippery atheist and pretend you're not taking a position?
Yeah.
Because you are.
I don't think it's a position. It's merely a statement of saying, I don't believe. That's
you don't believe what, sir?
Without beliefs. The belief that any gods exist. Right.
The Stoic concept of Zeus is the same concept as the Zoroastrian concept of Ahura Mazda, who is the same concept as Yahweh in the Bible, who is the same concept of God of Plato, and the Stoics, who were a deeply serious religion, who very much believed in Zeus. In the primitive times, Zeus was, of course, as you know, the guy that throws lightning bolts and stuff like that. But if you get deep into Stoic theology, and I will give you references because I have them, no, their idea of Zeus, or Zeus, was the uncreated creator, the all-powerful, the all-knowing, the almighty, God, the Father, which is probably why actually so many Stoics peacefully converted to Christianity.
Well, Max, here you're making the argument, making the argument that religions were invented by people because of the similarities over the millennia. You can't avoid it. You're actually boxing yourself into a corner.
Well, with that, I mean, I don't have to accept everything from the tradition simply to draw things from it, as this talk about faith, this talk about divine governance. They see order, they see rationality in the universe, and with that, I depart from that tradition. Yeah.
Well, if you don't see order or rationality in the universe, then, sir, you have no morals, and all your ethics will be dodgy, slippery, and unpredictable.
I don't see how that follows. What is
it? Follows from your own behavior. It follows from the behavior of your community. Atheists are observable. Atheists, for the most part, think Christians are niggers. They treat Christians like niggers. They treat like they're above us. No, it's not even a little. Have you listened to Penn Jillette talk about us? Even when he's saying nice things about us, he's still lying about us. Have you listened to John Oliver? Have you listened to Bill Maher? I'm sorry, to atheists, we're niggers. And we've been listening to you shit on us as a community for more than 10 years now and use us as your whipping boy. A lot of us, a whole lot of us, hear all that hate coming from you and all that slandering of Christianity and what Christianity is really like, and we believe you now. You hate us. Okay, we heard you.
Well, I don't...
And no, being nice. No, and you do hate me if you think you get to lecture me.
Now, Max has ventured into the realm of paranoia and is starting to resemble Alex Jones's mini-me.
On physics? On biology? On the Big Bang? If you, as a Christian, on evolution, if you think you get the right to lecture me on any of those, fuck you. We gave you most of that science, we Christians. And I see very little meaningful science produced by atheists since completely secularized, anti-religious people have taken over the sciences. In fact, it looks to me like have ruined the sciences.
Christians did not give us this science. It's true that there were Christian scientists who did discover some things, but science dragged Christianity kicking and screaming into the modern world. And the religions, not all of them have actually fully accepted, but most of the religions have ended up accepting modernity, accepting what we now consider as true, that the Earth revolves around the sun and gravity and all the things. And since people have stopped using scriptures to explain everything, science has explained almost everything that there is in the last 150 years, and made things meaningful, that we're no longer, we had germ theory, whereas it was a evil spirit, and religion explained things through mumbo jumbo, and science methodically discovered things and advanced our civilization.
Well, no, I wouldn't say I hold hate for particular individuals just because we have
Contempt.
disagreements.
Contempt.
No, not at all. No,
you think we're less intelligent than you, and you think we're less rational than you,
No.
and you think we're less evidence-based than you. You think all these things, and these are all lies, sir.
And you prove your point by insulting non-believers, insulting Justin, characterizing him in a negative way, cursing at him. Okay.
I don't think that that's the case. I mean, surely one idea about someone's life doesn't shape them as an entire human being. Just because I
Yes,
think
it does.
someone is wrong on certain topics doesn't mean I hold hatred for them or that I think they're less intelligent. In fact, I know many people within the scientific community happen to be religious. I don't think they're stupid. I'm not going to go say nasty names for them or nasty names toward them. It's just a simple point of disagreement, that's all.
So Justin is being the adult in the room. He's not lowering himself to insulting and belittling people of religious faith, whereas Max Kolb is doing just that to people without faith.
Okay. Maybe you're one of those atheists who's not like that. I wrote an article about that called Not All Atheists Are Like That. We do a video on it. Maybe you're one of those, because I've written a disclaimer for you guys who aren't hateful, bigoted, and nasty, and are simply ignorant.
But I thought we all were.
You talk about atheists as a group, and sure, there are a lot of local groups within this umbrella of the atheism community, whether people call themselves skeptics, rationalists, humanists, and I'm part of some
rationalist. Right. Another arrogant, offensive term, by the way.
It's not an exclusive term for atheists. I mean, many Christians can put themselves inside that manner.
Yes, it is an exclusive term for atheists, and you know it. You're lying when you say it's not. You're pretending you're the only rational ones, and you're all either atheists or wishy-washy agnostics who lean toward the atheist proposition. And you're all united only under one thing, your belief in your own phrasing. I know, I was there, okay? I was in the cult with you for a while. In your own phrasing, we're united in our lack of belief in any god or gods.
Right.
Okay? That puts you in opposition to all of us who do believe in them.
It's possible that in Max Kolb's world, differing on opinions and beliefs is necessarily opposition. This is a very antagonistic approach that he's had this entire quote-unquote conversation with Justin.
Well, surely there are some philosophical disagreements, of course, but no contempt or hatred.
Bullshit, I get it every day.
I don't
Christians
see that.
get it every day. Well, then you're not looking, sir, and this is something else I've noticed. The atheist community has no conscience, and no one who will take accountability for abuses, including censorship by atheists, terrorism by atheists, harassment by atheists, bigotry from atheists, abusive behavior from atheists. None of you will take accountability while you still sit there and pretend you're victims who also don't exist as an identifiable group.
We'll see many of these people that come to groups talk about experiences that they've had facing hatred in their communities, some difficulties at work, differences with family members. Some people have been castigated from their households. They say, oh, don't talk to me anymore. And I think of some of what you're saying that's inflammatory about atheists is some of the reason for that. Atheists having no morals, you wouldn't vote for an atheist. I think you're providing evidence for some of that some people say is this resistance that atheists face for openly identifying.
Justin is making a good point here that Max Kolb's belligerent attitude is proving that atheists are untrusted and despised and victimized all over the world. for not believing. Now he mentions terror. I'm once again I'm having to skip a lot of points because I'd be here 5 hours. But he mentions terrorism, and if you look on the data from any data from any source, the sources of terrorism comes from people that are from a religious group all over the world.
Yeah, and you know what that whiny little bit of bullshit is debunked by? Christians have been unbelievably kind to atheists for more than 10 years, while most of you have been shitting on us that same time. That's what's actually been happening. The same social justice people who took over the mainstream media and made it all feminist, have been upset with making atheists into a victim group.
I think what you mean to say here is that social justice warriors have been working hard to make social justice warriors into a victim group.
And making atheists feel like they have a license to abuse religious people, which they now do regularly. I have more than one anecdote, thank you.
Well, blow me. This man is a veritable cornucopia of integrity. He has more than one anecdote.
You're going to sit there and lie to us and say you're not an ideology or a movement? Yes, you are, and you're dedicated to contempt for your fellow man.
There is indeed a movement in that people are organizing, that groups are getting together. For instance, a group that
think you're more rational than the rest of us. We get it.
Well, on the idea of religion, obviously we think that religious individuals are wrong about the religious ideas, but not as a whole, not as like this idea that we're better than religious people. I don't think this is accurate discourse. This isn't a good way to go forward with a conversation, and it's not a way to treat others.
Well, Justin, thank you again for being the adult in the room. Max is thoroughly confused and doesn't understand the difference between disagreeing and being in opposition.
I am more afraid of atheists than I am of Muslims, especially for my son's future. Which is one of the reasons why I and others, I'll show you some more YouTube videos, in our churches, and this is happening, God, I know it's happening in synagogues and other places, training children on what horrible bullies atheists are, using as their examples, using people like Penn Jillette as their example, using people like Bill Maher as their example, your heroes, Richard Dawkins, who's a pseudoscientist and fraud, by the way. Former member of your community, I'm telling you, Justin, you're in a cult that's in denial about reality, and that is based on nothing but hate.
I think
people aren't like you.
You know, it's kind of interesting in that in communities you're going to get these people. I mean, when I was in the public eye working on church-state separation issues, I got all sorts of hate mail. I got a lot of backlash from people. There was a local DJ who called me the third most hated person in Luzerne County. There were people sending nasty messages. I mean, it's just going to happen here. I mean,
that's true. You were the one who was running around teaching people that prayer doesn't work, right?
Well, yes,
Yes, okay. You're a vile cultist spreading pseudoscience, sir.
You're saying that.
Much research refutes you. We need to be skeptical of you. Because much research refutes you. You were being a bully to simple-minded people who hadn't heard this before, and that's all you were.
This is a problem in that you're criticizing the discourse of the atheist community, but you're calling me a vile cult leader and a bully. This isn't very productive discourse that you're seeking to
be productive, sir? What you were doing there was bullying and recruiting people with pseudoscience. You're rightly disliked.
There was a government event that was called the National Day of Prayer, in which government members were asking citizens to pray to God, and this is what I objected to.
Well, that's incredibly obnoxious and hateful of you, sir. You didn't get enough criticism of it.
So once again, the person here calling atheists bullies and intolerant is telling Justin that for standing up for the things he believes in, or doesn't believe in this case, church-state separation, he should be more bullied by people with beliefs. He didn't get enough of it.
How hateful are you? Who the fuck are you?
Why is it that you see this as hateful behavior? I don't understand.
You are suppressing how it is rational and completely evidence-based and logical to think there's God.
Because you say so. Well, I guess we should accept your word for it and give up on this crusade against Christianity that the atheists have.
And most of your fellow human beings believe it, always have, and by the way, always will.
So I don't see this as an argument, really.
Yes, it is. It's called democracy.
Well,
and what people like do.
it seems to be a
And what
bandwagon
people,
argument here that just because so many people believe something, that it's logical to believe. Is that what you're
yes,
proposing?
yeah, of course it is, because that's
Oh,
actually true. That's actually true on any subject.
I-
Now, of course, you'll probably run off and scurry off and lie and said that's the only proof you need for God. There's ample proof for God, Justin, depending on where you want to look.
well,
One proof is the fact that most people believe it. That is actually proof of something.
Well,
Just like,
clearly this can be the case because there are a lot of people who will believe ideas of Marxism, certain political ideologies, that people in North Korea believe that their leader is the emperor, and this simply doesn't make
so
it
what?
true. It doesn't make it
So what?
true. It's just a statement of what people believe.
Well, this is entirely a fictitious train of thought. It's completely spurious to say that if everyone believes or most people believe in something, then it's true. For example, the every night the sun was gobbled up and then it escaped in the morning. Once again the sun would revolve around the earth. Most people believe that, but it doesn't make it true. And at one time they thought you could sail off the edge of the earth. And we don't. There's just countless. It's ridiculous to even get into this. To make that, as Justin points out, the bandwagon argument. It's not even worth going there.
Most people in North Korea also believe that Kim is the emperor. They're
Right,
correct.
right.
They're correct in that belief.
Right, but
if you walk down the street and three people say, look, a black guy just stole a car, and one said, no, I think he was white, or flip the races around, it doesn't matter, you're going to guess that the one who got the race wrong was the minority opinion.
That is truly a bizarre analogy because the one who got the race wrong, you're saying three people said a black or a white guy and then one person changed his mind. It doesn't mean they're wrong. It could be two, the majority were wrong and the guy that changed his mind was correct. You're undermining your entire argument for why religion should be accepted because people say it is and you say it's true, so we should believe it.
Just pretending that you're the default rational ones. No, most of your human beings know there's something spiritual, that there's something beyond the laws of physics. They know it instinctively, and by the way, they know it instinctively the way they know 2 + 2 = 4.
Well, I don't see those as the same propositions because when we're talking about mathematics, we have definitions for terms, and this is simply an identity statement. We understand what the value of 2 is, what the value of 2 is, and when you add these values together, you have 4. It's merely evident. I don't see it's evident in the same way that God exists, that we simply think that God exists. Well, that's not good enough reason that it feels right to me or that it seems that God exists. We don't have this outside standard for that. You talk about cosmological arguments, you talk about near-death experiences, biology, and I don't think that we're correctly drawing these inferences from this available what you consider evidence to the fact that God exists, not only a God, but the Christian God and the Catholic tradition comes from that. I don't see that as a proper conclusion.
Well, if you're going to be a typical slippery atheist, and you're going to say there's no evidence for God, when I have given you massive evidence for God that most
you're giving
know.
evidence, but the question is whether it's good evidence.
The only evidence Max has given so far in this discussion is opinion evidence. And opinion evidence is different than evidence of facts, which he hasn't preferred one yet. So Justin asks this guy for evidence, and here's his golden opportunity to say, okay, well, here is the evidence, X, Y, Z, therefore I'm correct. His evidence is go watch my video. I'm not going to bother to even talk about what is on there and then have some scientists try to refute it. That's not evidence. I don't even know what that is. That's goofy.
It is evidence, sir, and you choose to accept it or reject it.
Well, is it
It's
good
very
evidence?
clear. It's exceptionally good evidence, sir. It's unimpeachable evidence. I dare you to impeach it.
Okay.
You can't.
Well, let's hear one of the arguments. How about the cosmological arguments or cosmological constants that you brought up? Let's have that one.
What about them? What about them?
Well, let's hear the argument.
Go watch my video. I'm actually go watch my video and get somebody who's a physicist to say that what I said there is scientifically wrong. You won't get it done because this scientifically correct. Go watch the video.
Okay.
And what I consider your question, you're in active denial of evidence. And there is no evidence I can give you.
Mainly because there's no evidence that you can give him. And you haven't given him any evidence other than your opinion. I believe in God, therefore, and other people, therefore, we're right.
Okay, well, I brought up this argument from Hume.
His argument from Hume.
Yeah.
David Hume was at least honest and said he believed there was no God, which most of you won't do. I would trust a David Hume.
It's beyond bizarre that he would his entire thrust is that this is what atheists are doing. They're talking about not believing in God, and yet we're not honest like David Hume.
You can go anywhere you want. All the philosophical ethicists are increasingly agreeing with this. No objective standard, no reliable ethics.
Well,
they just don't work.
I think this objective standard is a trap that we're looking for, this concrete, unmovable objects. But as we learn more about culture, we learn more about history, we make moral progress, and we change our ideas that we have about how other people are to be treated. We have ideas like slavery that was just some accepted thing in many ancient worlds and even more modern societies, that we thought this is the way we are to live. And if we're to say, point to this, objective standard, slavery is just something that we do. What room is there for progress in moral thought if we have this objective standard? That's a problem I have with this.
I'm going to point out to you that only atheists talk like you.
And I want to point out to Max that people with a moral compass talk like Justin. The problem that Justin's pointing out with morality based on a religion or a religious scripture is that if they're infallible and they're immutable, then all the things that for hundreds of years and thousands of years that were considered evil and bad now would never change. They would never. He points this out. There would never be an improvement in slavery or how we treat other people. The Holy Scriptures, the Christian Holy Scriptures, point out that slavery is not only acceptable, but how you should conduct yourself as a slave owner. So if we stuck with this immutable fact, then we would be still in the Dark Ages, when, by the way, in the West is when Christianity ruled.
In any case, I know, because I used to say things all just like that. I have yet to hear anything original come out of an atheist's mouth that isn't at least 3,000 years debunked. Because I'm going to finish my thought.
I'm seeing this again, that a lot of atheists would say the same thing of Christians, but you object when the atheists would say it of Christians, that, it's the same things we've heard before.
No, most of you don't listen to us. You listen to Bible thumpers. You don't listen to smart, educated Christians. Most of you don't.
I brought this.
Oh, I get it now, Max. This is where we've got it all wrong. We haven't been listening. We've been listening to religious people, not the smart people. Okay, the smart, educated people.
I've listened to a lot of debates from William Lane Craig. I've read Mere Christianity. I've read, I have some other books on my shelf, Timothy Keller, The Reason for God. And I've listened to a lot of these arguments, and I just haven't found the points convincing. I've found a lot of opponents, like Stephen Law, for instance, Massimo Pigliucci, who've debated, or some people in the atheist community that I really enjoy their presentation, their modes, how they engage with the public. You have some issues with how some people behave in the public eye, or some criticism, but I would say that if you disagree with their criticism, that you should emulate the standard that you're hoping to see from others, rather than talking down to atheists, or rather than painting atheists with this negative brush that you don't want Christians painted with.
So Justin takes his time, he's a patient man, and finally points out the hypocrisy of this Max Kolb guy.
No.
Why not?
What else you want to talk about?
Well, Max, you have a genuine economy of words when you're making an intellectual point. We're not supposed to listen to the Bible thumpers, but educated people like you, and this is the response we get from a question, from a pretty legitimate question.
Okay, all right. Well, we had this. Let's see. You
have no right to ask to be treated decently.
Why not?
Because first off, why should I? Give me a reason.
If you're hoping...
No. that does not invoke my Christian ethics, please give me
Sure.
a single reason to give a shit.
If you're hoping to receive respect from others, then emulating what you would want to see would be the way forward.
Now, Max keeps bringing up the word things like slippery. Wait do you see how he slips out of this one in his next few words.
I don't believe you. My experience for some years now says the opposite. I will repeat, you treat Christians like niggers. We don't need to take it
That's not
any.
very productive either. Is
Yeah.
it that
I'm
people are
finding this very
lynching
productive.
Christians and that there's like some
Actually,
race baiting and
Actually, hate
some,
crimes against Catholics are up.
I joked about economy of words, but I find his vocabulary repugnant. Where are you getting the statistics that hate crimes against Catholics are up? Now, I'm assuming you mean by atheist, and where is this happening? Name one. He can't. He's not going to name one. And by the way, if you're Max, Dean, whatever your name is, if you're watching this, please in the comments below list the hate crimes against Catholics by atheists, and this long list of names. I'm sure there's plenty of room down there. Please do.
Well, do you think that if you're going to continue hurling invective at people, that people are going to respond to you in kind, and that the criticism isn't going to be seen as tempered, and people are just going to dismiss what you have to say?
You hideous hypocrites!
I don't understand. I'm good.
Hideous hypocrites who listen to people like John Oliver and Bill Maher and Penn Jillette and other supposed brave comedians. I'm being brave back. I am going by the same discourse level that Stephen Fry and Christopher Hitchens established. You should be applauding me for my courage, sir. Why aren't you?
So what Max Kolb is saying here is his moral high bar, his moral gold standard, is the lowest standard set by the people he despises and feel have no morality. And that's what he's going to base their worst morality is his high point of morality. That's his argument.
Well, you see, I don't favor an abrasive method of conversation. I like to simply talk about issues and talk to the person. I don't see it's a productive way to go forward to hurl invective at people.
This is because, Justin, you are a gentleman and you are earning respect by being respectful. And Max could have a serious lesson in respecting others and treating others the way you want to be treated from you.
This
don't think
is
it's
not my
productive.
method.
I don't think it's productive to be nice to people who have no morals, who have no ethics, and who shit on theists and lie about them.
I wonder what would Jesus do, but of course that has nothing to do with Christianity, does it?
I think what's productive
You see-
is to confront your entire movement and make it take some real criticism from not
You're cutting out.
not what the mainstream media has done for 10 years and trot out fundamentalists with no theological or philosophical training and all these stupid debates that are set up where atheists never have to answer for their own bullshit.
I wonder if Max is familiar with the Fixed Point Foundation. They schedule many debates with atheists versus religious scholars, philosophers. So is this who he's talking about?
And never have to prove anything to everyone else. I'm sorry, sir, but a causeless universe makes no goddamn sense.
Well,
So
you
most
see,
people are obviously right because to believe in God or some higher purpose, because not only do they instinctively believe it, but logically it makes more sense. You don't have to accept it. Yours is the minority opinion. Deal with it.
Now, using Max's logic, or shall I say illogic, then the minority has to accept majority opinion. So in parts of the world where Christians are actually being discriminated against in, say, a majority Muslim country, then they should bow down and say, okay, so you're the majority, I should accept your will because we're the minority. So if in some future date the Christians are the minority to, say, Muslims or atheists, will you have to accept their will?
yeah, that's fine, but I'm seeing that I can just simply answer with an I don't know thing. I don't know why the universe is the way it is. If the universe has a cause, if there's some cause of it, might it be a god? Might it be a demon? Might it be a computer simulation? Might it be something? I don't know. Just because I lack an answer doesn't mean that we should go ahead and believe in God because we don't have a fitting explanation or something that might be problematic. It's simply this what's often called as the God of the gaps, that we don't understand something, so God is simply put in its place.
The only people who believe in God in the gaps, sir, are Richard Dawkins type atheists. Only atheists believe in the God in the gaps.
Somebody needs to break that bad news to the intelligent design people.
And it shows their inability to understand a concept that has been understood for thousands of years. The uncreated creator, the unmoved mover. Okay? Those are the definitions used by all these different religions, not just philosophies. For you to stand in ignorance and say, I don't know. Well, if you don't know, consider the possibility that you're wrong and there is one.
Oh, sure, it's a possibility, but as a viable possibility, well, I don't see good evidence, again, to go back to that there is in fact a personal cause of the universe or the supernatural being or this.
I'm sorry you don't see evidence. The rest of us do.
Right, and the question is whether that's good evidence.
And the evidence seems to be, from listening to you, maybe this is not how all religious people think, and actually I think it is, but because we believe that is evidence, that because we believe it's evidence. And I don't know if you've mentioned this yet or you're going to mention it, but since it's written in the Bible, it's evidence. Well, yes, the Bible is evidence. It's not, as Justin points out, it's not. A lot of us believe it's not good evidence. It's something that people wrote.
You said, like, watch the video that you had, but the viewers, they can go watch that, but we haven't talked about that argument here other than the idea that many people believe it, and that's good reason to presume that it is true. And
it is the clear experience of most theists, regardless of their religion, that atheists actively deny every single piece of evidence given to them. It looks pathological, and it is very predictable. I have explored this in my videos too. Literally, you deny all evidence while pretending the rational ones.
I see that this happens with practitioners of so-called alternative medicines. They'll say, well, we have this certain modality that can cure you, that if you take this certain vitamin or take this certain pill that you'll be better, and everybody's denying the evidence and no one wants to listen, and I see this tactic very much the same. So we say, well, what is the evidence? Let's hear what the evidence is, rather than this talk of the evidence being rejected.
Here comes the atheist science cop, another one of the most annoying traits of the modern atheist, and why I'm so glad I got out of your cult. Sir, you're not the science police.
If Justin was the police, then he would be arresting you for an intellectual crime.
Okay.
Because most of you become philosophical naturalists if you're smart. If you're dumb, you get into something like Ayn Rand or Marx. If you're smarter and more educated and higher IQ, you might get into this abstract, airy-fairy, college-educated, cultural Marxist indoctrinated. I am talking about you. A fairly ethical standard for your way of life, while people who don't have all the privileges you did, and yes, there are, I use the privilege word, even get through college, when they become atheists, it almost destroys their lives, which is why, by the way, they're overrepresented in the prison population. Now
that last comment about atheists being overrepresented in the prison population flies in the face of every survey, every statistic put out by anyone.
Atheist cult movement lied to you. If you don't go to church, you're more likely to wind up in jail.
We'll just leave that graphic there as our last comment to Max. Now, I had a very difficult time sitting through this entire discussion, and it wasn't because anything that Justin Vacula did. He was a gentleman, he was very polite, he was respectful, and he was mature, acted with a lot of dignity, while the other guy was hurling invectives and foul language at him and making accusations throughout the entire. He came out swinging. And once again, I mentioned that Justin was the adult in the room, and I give him a lot of credit for that. It's a really painful discussion, and this is no fault of Justin Vacula. Listening to this Christian apologist argue over and over and over again the same thing, just making assertions without even attempting to give reasons other than accusations. I'm not too sure it was a really fruitful discussion. It did help reveal how the mind of some religionists work. I guess that's the takeaway. Anyway, if you've enjoyed anything on this channel, please subscribe. Please subscribe to Justin Vacula. I'll have links to his site in the description, also to Max Kolb's site.